I visited the airport for the first time with my wife, Carol. However, we found ourselves surrounded by a group of 5 men. "Your wife is hot," one of them said. "Old men, get away." They deliberately crossed their arms and showed their fists, trying to separate her and me. But in the next moment, she suddenly burst into laughter. "Do you think you can do anything to this man?" I asked, trying to diffuse the tension. "It's just a joke," one of them replied. "Can you call your boss?" I asked Carol. "What?" she responded, confused. Later, when the boss appeared and saw her face, he started trembling uncontrollably, as if all the blood drained from his body. "My name is Brian Williams," I introduced myself. "I'm 33 years old this year. I have a large stature with well-developed muscles. Some might say I have a lean, muscular physique. The reason my body is well-trained is likely due to my past job as a bodyguard. They say I used to work protecting politicians and celebrities domestically and internationally. However, during a mission, accompanying a client to a rural area, I suffered a severe injury while protecting the client. Since then, everything, including my age and career, has become speculative as I lost my memory beyond my right wrist during that assignment. My earliest memory is of the view from a hospital bed, a stark white ceiling, and white bandages wrapped around me. In that helpless situation, Carol, my girlfriend, was my only solace. Even though I couldn't remember her face, she kindly forgave me, and during my hospitalization, her brightness and sincerity were a great comfort to me. "Even without memories, just your being alive is enough," I told her. "Let's create many memories together from now on." Upon my discharge, I married her. Even though I quit my job as a bodyguard and received insurance and retirement funds, combined with her income as a nurse, wandering around without a purpose didn't suit me. So I searched for work. It was challenging to find a job that would hire someone with no dominant hand and no memory. But eventually, I landed a position as an administrative staff at a delivery service. My enjoyment during work is exploring various nearby restaurants for lunch. On that day, I was savoring a meal at the counter of a Chinese restaurant I recently liked. "May I sit here?" a man with a soft smile asked, pointing to the seat next to mine. I noticed the lunchtime crowd and shared seating was inevitable. "Sure, go ahead," I replied. After promptly placing his order, the man struck up a friendly conversation with me as I ate. "This place is fantastic, isn't it? Do you come here often?" "Oh yeah." As I gave a vague response, he showed a soft smile. "Sorry for approaching you suddenly. I'm Mark Smith. I couldn't help but notice you seem exhausted." My face? "Yes, you look exhausted. Would you like to come to my massage parlor?" Perhaps this man is a masseur. Seeing a laborer like me, he might be trying to pitch his business. As I hesitated to respond immediately, he forcefully handed me his business card, gripping my left hand. Trying to pull away, his grip was unexpectedly strong. "There's the address and map on the back. Feel free to drop by. It'll make your body and mind feel better. Come visit me." Receiving a business card is harmless and I could always discard it. As if he could read my thoughts, he flashed a smile at me. "I'll be coming here again tomorrow, so let me guide you around." "Yeah, okay." In a hurry, I finished the remaining dishes and stood up to settle the bill. "Let's meet again, Brian." I nodded lightly and left the restaurant. However, on the way back to the office, I suddenly realized, did I tell him my name? That night, when I told Carol about him, she advised me to discard the business card. He seems like a weird person, so it's better not to get involved, right? Maybe try having lunch at a different place. Certainly she had a point. Guided to an unfamiliar place without knowing anything about the person, I must have seemed like someone without a sense of danger. But it'll be awkward if we meet again. I'm not good at lying. It's hard to say I haven't been drinking. Just don't meet him. He doesn't know our home address anyway. Her words made me tilt my head. Come to think of it, I feel like he knew my name. What's that, scary? Could he be stalking you? No one stalks a man in his 30s. I unintentionally laughed, but she earnestly tried to convince me. I have a bad feeling about that. Strangely, you come to the shop every day. If you happen to meet him again, be sure to call the police. She seemed to have a sharp intuition, and her premonitions often turned out to be right. From the next day, following her advice, I went to an entirely different area than usual. I found excitement in entering new restaurants. realizing that I enjoyed visiting unfamiliar places. While waiting at a pedestrian crossing and contemplating exploring more places on my way back to the office, I was suddenly pushed from behind. Oops! I jumped into the roadway and desperately retreated as a large dump truck grazed the tips of my toes. Even when the signal turned green, I remained seated in the same spot, my chest pounding loudly and my legs trembling uncontrollably. It felt like someone was trying to take my life. At first, I thought it was ridiculous, but my suspicions quickly turned into certainty. After that, I faced body checks at the train station platform and was nearly pushed down the stairs. The most unforgivable incident was a car crashing into my home. Fortunately, both Carol and I were absent at that time, but the van had smashed into the entrance of our home. It was a stolen car and the driver remained unidentified. Terrified that her life was also at risk, I finally decided to consult the police. With increased patrols, further suspicious incidents were prevented, but she remained vigilant. Let's go on a trip and get away from this house. It'll be a good change of pace for you, right? She suggested. A trip sounds good, but I have work, I replied. As I was about to say that, I finally realized that her concerns were also directed towards my job. I had met the man near my workplace for the first time, so it wasn't completely off the mark. I'll quit this job and look for something in a different place. Then, before starting the new job, let's refresh ourselves. I'm gonna take a slightly longer break, I told her. Her chosen destination for the trip was the Philippines. We had planned to go there for our honeymoon, but due to my unstable condition right after discharge, we had to give up on it. Sounds great. Let's go to the Philippines. It's a bit delayed, but it can be our belated honeymoon, she said with a smile. Her face lit up and she looked happy as she quickly prepared her travel clothes and guidebooks. Her excitement naturally made me look forward to it too. And then the day of the trip arrived. We were waiting for the boarding time in the airport lobby. Is the stay duration 2 weeks? She asked. We rented a house, so let's take it easy, I replied. Although it shouldn't be my first time on an airplane, for me who had lost my memory, it was essentially the first flight. Concerned about me, who was nervously anticipating, she stood up gracefully. I'll get some drinks for you. Stay here, she said reassuringly. Thanks to her being there, I felt like I could live again. I can live like this, even without my right hand and memories. Expressing my gratitude to her once again, I watched her small back. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her walking towards me, smiling, with drinks in hand. However, at that moment, unfamiliar men suddenly surrounded her. Reacting quickly, I rushed to her, shielding her small body with my own. There were 5 guys in total also surrounding us from behind. The man with sunglasses, probably the leader standing in the center, seemed to be the most skilled in combat. But it's okay. I can subdue them in an instant. After calmly analyzing the situation and making a judgment, I felt a surge of confidence. Why am I able to make judgments with such confidence? The men, without showing any disturbance at my appearance, approached with a smirk instead. The man with sunglasses in the middle sneered at me. Well, your wife is hot. Old man, disappear. Nope. At that moment, I recognized the man standing in front of me. With sunglasses and a flashy open-collared shirt, he looked like a thug, and this man was definitely the one I met at the Chinese restaurant. Mark or something. I don't like perceptive old men, he laughed loudly, then suddenly glared sharply at me. Just disappear. Your opponent is going to be my buddy here. The one referred to as a buddy is probably his subordinate. The men deliberately crossed their arms and showed their fists, trying to separate me and her. But in the next moment, she burst into laughter suddenly. Do you guys think you can do something to him? It's pointless. Can you call your boss? What? He stared at her in amazement, but perhaps feeling ridiculed, he quickly became furious. You think you can get cocky if we go easy on you? Hey, you guys, change of plans. Crush the old man in front of this cheeky girl. Upon hearing his order, the first to move was not his buddy, but me. Anticipating the 4 men who were preparing to fight, I pushed the shoulder of the man on the left, disrupting his balance. While the surprised man fell, involving his comrades, the man at the opposite end swung his arm towards me. However, I calmly avoided the fist and stepped back, confirming that the man who had lost his target swayed and collapsed to the floor, waving his arms. My awareness was sharpened to the extreme. My awareness was heightened, and the movements of those around me felt like slow motion. How would my opponent move next? And how should I move? As if in a movie scene, I subdued the 4 men without lowering my hand. I was the only one left. This plan, it was your arbitrary decision, right? No way. He should have lost his memory. He just looked around at his fallen comrades, seemingly useless. Seeing his clumsiness, she sighed deeply. You're such a small fry. Hurry up and call the boss, will you? But hurry up. Slapped by her dignified voice, Mark jumped and started operating his phone. After a while, a large man appeared, probably from our parents' generation. He had the presence and composure fitting for someone called the boss. You've become quite important to call me out. It's an emergency, boss. Something happened to Carol. Carol? How did they know her name? I wondered, but any small doubt disappeared in the boss's astonished expression that followed. Upon seeing her face, the boss turned pale and started trembling. He then berated Mark with tremendous force. What have you done to her? I did it for her. Shut up. Miss, my subordinate has caused you great disrespect. The man referred to as the boss began showing his respect to her. It seems the quality has greatly deteriorated. To have such a man as your subordinate. I have no words to return. At least please handle this guy as you see fit, miss. It seems she knew the boss. Still bewildered by everything happening, she frowned. I'm sorry. Let's cancel the trip. Should we go home and talk a bit? I agreed to the cancellation as well. Going to the Philippines now would be no fun with him and his gang around. When we returned home, surprisingly, she brought Mark along. I found it strange to invite the man who attacked us into our house, but I decided to listen to her explanation first. Now where should we start? She prepared coffee for us and took a sip herself. Why did my body move on its own? And why did you, who handed me a business card from a massage parlor, send thugs to attack us? Explain it so that I can understand. Mark seemed to have prepared himself during the journey. He returned to his initial soft but forceful demeanor when we first met and shrugged his shoulders. Let's start with your story, shall we? You were my superior. Superior? Was this when I worked as a... When I worked as a bodyguard, I asked, and he looked at me with pity. She told me that you used to work as a bodyguard. Is that true? Well, yes. First of all, you weren't a bodyguard. You and I were both members of a former Special Forces unit. As your superior, you were a very strict and serious person. I felt my head spinning at this unexpected confession. Hold on, so did she lie to me? She didn't deny my question. That meant his story was true. Our unit was tasked with highly specialized missions, infiltrating countries with no diplomatic ties, participating in suppressing civil wars, the kind of work that never makes it to the news in this country. And the final order we received was to protect a VIP in a certain country. He, back to his casual tone, grinned at Carol and said, "So the term bodyguard isn't a complete lie." And with that, he gulped down the now lukewarm coffee. As a result, trouble ensued in that place. But thanks to your efforts, the situation was resolved safely. Oh, thanks. He is grinning, but I can tell he's not trying to compliment me. And what he said next shocked me so much that my eyes went blank. You single-handedly annihilated the guerrillas surrounding our building, all while protecting the VIP. Despite being my superior, you were like no human I'd ever seen. Every person there, including women and child soldiers, was taken down. Later, we confirmed that you had taken the lives of 108 people. 108 people. The overwhelming number of casualties left me visibly shaken. I listened to the unexpected revelations about the past and observed her expression. However, she remained silent, still looking down, showing no signs of denying his words. But even you, as remarkable as you are, couldn't escape unscathed. When you were found, it was a terrible sight. Your right wrist and beyond had disappeared, and you suffered from bruises and impacts all over your body. You were gasping for breath. Honestly, everyone present at that moment thought it was hopeless that you wouldn't make it, except for her here. I looked at her in surprise, wondering why she was involved in my past. My face must have reflected my doubts. He, enjoying my surprise, grinned and continued the story. The VIP you protected was her father. He naively trusted the enemy's words and went out to a dangerous place. During a dangerous negotiation, thanks to her father, you lost both your right hand and your memories. This was not acceptable. The past he described was completely unfamiliar to me. I just stared silently at the end of my right wrist. Unfortunately, her father met a tragic end on his way back home. Some speculated that you didn't take your guard duties seriously, but Carol didn't believe that. She heard about your efforts to save her and even tried to save me. Afterward, I was sent back to the country under strict security. However, after witnessing the dark side of various countries for years as a member of the Special Forces, it wasn't easy to transition back to civilian life. Losing my memory may have been fortunate in the end. Instead of letting me live as an ordinary person, she acted as my protector. No, she was my fiancé. Fiancé? He burst into laughter, as if he had heard an amusing joke. Who did you hear that from? Carol, right? She wouldn't tell the truth to someone she's deceiving. The woman who claimed to be my fiancé was keeping an eye on me. Is that true? I wanted to at least see her face, so I directed my gaze towards her. However, she remained unmoved, looking down as if enduring something. But it was too much for me, who risked my life to follow orders. How much was the retirement pay for a so-called bodyguard? Ideally, I should have received a huge reward. Yet here I am, working a part-time job. It's a betrayal to our special forces. He, either excited or frustrated, slammed the table with his palm. The coffee cup, now empty, made a small rattling sound. So I came back for you. I hoped it would be a clue for you to regain your memory. I want you to return to the person I admired, the strict superior. Wouldn't you want to regain your past memories? Then what about the commotion at the airport? Why did you target me? Suddenly becoming humble, he directed a smile at me. I apologized for earlier. She didn't want to let go of the toy she had finally obtained. You. So I tried to forcefully separate you and her using drastic means. My memories. Should I really regain my memories? Seeing my inner turmoil, he deepened his smile. Now let's reclaim your memories and return to the unit together. Oh, what I know seems different. At that moment, she interjected with a calm expression. You just wanted to cover up your own failures, right? Hey, what are you talking about? That can't be true. Ignoring the flustered man, she smiled at me. In general, what he said is true, but there's one big difference. The truth was, it seemed that he had initiated the situation by selling our information to the enemy. When I discovered the scene, he desperately explained. He pretended to sell information to the enemy, but was actually spying on their side. He said that he had set up negotiations with the guerrillas as proof that he had not turned to the enemy, and that he took some important people with him to talk with the guerrilla leaders, along with me. But in reality, he had become the enemy's inside man, leaving me and her father alone in the midst of the enemy. I was left behind to deal with 108 people by myself, and later they found me without my right hand and memory, and they saved my life. After finishing the whole story, she finally turned her gaze back to him. Do you have any excuses? What's the big deal? What's wrong with my actions? He seemed cornered, but unexpectedly he became defiant instead. Everyone values their own life. You would do the same. I've only worked hard to gain status, honor, and wealth. So you admit to my story. While he yelled with an excited red face, she contrastingly sat quietly on the couch. He triumphantly, pointing at her, declared without remorse, Yeah, that's right. I did it all. But so what? The demon commander who lost his memory and the woman completely disarmed by such a man. No matter how much they spout nonsense, no one would believe them. That might be true. Finally admitting your helplessness. At that triumphant moment, he looked puzzled, searching his jacket pocket. What he pulled out was a vibrating cell phone indicating an incoming call. A message from the boss. What the hell? Why am I a subject of disciplinary action? You explained it yourself. Good job. While he panicked and flustered, in contrast, Carol calmly sipped her coffee. Nonsense, no way. You. If it was such a brilliant plan, I thought I should let the boss know. Your passion for the Special Forces must have impressed the boss as well. You wicked woman. She smiles at him, who exclaims with wide eyes, and holds up her own cell phone to show him. The screen was in call status, and the name of the caller, boss, was displayed in large letters. In other words, his boss knew all about his plan to use me to fool the special forces. I've had the boss in on the whole story right from the start. Your passion for special forces must have been very inspiring to him. You bitch. He immediately tried to escape, but before he had time to do so, several men entered through the front door. Their ability to sneak up on you without making a single sound of footsteps, as if their large physique were a lie, is incomparable to the thugs we saw earlier at the airport. When he finally recognized the face of the boss, he nodded as if in contemplation. Have your excuses ready? I'll deny everything. Yes, sir. He lost all his vigor, surrounded by the men, and was taken away. Carol, confirming that he and the others were out of sight, let out a relieved sigh. It's finally over. After that, she, who became remarkably calm, began to explain what happened after the incident. If his betrayal had been exposed, he should have been dealt with, but he immediately escaped. Unable to speak due to injuries, I, who knew the truth, and her father, the other witness, passed away before conveying his betrayal. But she, who had heard her father's last words alone, volunteered to be my guardian to pursue him. His invitation to the massage parlor was probably an attempt to capture you somehow. Now, being the sole witness, he wanted to eliminate you, erase all evidence, and return to the special forces with lies. So did you suspect him from the beginning? To my question, she nodded quietly. I lured him using you as bait. Then, making it seem like we were escaping overseas this time, we caught him in a panicked state. Why did you call the boss? He was the squad leader back then. Knowing that I was pursuing the real culprit of the incident, he entrusted the handling of him to me. After explaining that much, she expressed her apology. I'm sorry for lying. Saying that I was your fiancé was a lie, just as he said. Even though it was to capture him, I did something terrible to you. Shaken by a series of revelations I had just learned, I just stared at her. At first, I was with you only for the mission, but now I genuinely love you. It might be hard to believe, but these past few years have been the happiest in my life. After saying that, with her face still down, she let tears drop onto the table and secretly shed tears without showing me her face. Thinking back, ever since I regained consciousness, her smile has always been next to me. In the face of her, a sight I had never seen before. Never seen before, I took a deep breath. I won't blame you, Brian. She looked stunned, lifting her tear-streaked face. Living with you helped me regain the ability to trust others. I'm not resentful, but grateful for the fact that you protected me. But is it okay? I deceived you, right? I wrapped my arms around her, using my right wrist to gently pat her slender back to comfort her. In the future, we might face danger again, but this time, I'll protect you from it. So you'll continue to be my bodyguard? She faintly smiled and gently hugged me in return. After that, Mark's whereabouts remained unknown. When I asked her once, she just laughed and said, "It's fine. He'll never show up near us again." I have no idea what happened to him afterward, but he probably didn't lead a decent life. Later, she reported to the boss about me still having amnesia. I don't know the details of the report within the unit, but so far there haven't been any reprimands from the boss. Carol and I now live peacefully, leaving behind the past of the Special Forces. We finally went on the Philippines trip that was canceled before. As a couple, we thoroughly enjoyed our belated honeymoon. Let's keep traveling together from now on. Illuminated by the sunset over the tropical sea, she happily smiled. This is a secret from her, but I am gradually recovering my memories. With the skills acquired throughout my life, I felt like I could do anything to protect this smile.